I'm curious about your perspective on money. You started making really good money in your late teens, early 20s, more than 99.9% of people in their late teens and 20s in the world probably. How did that affect you? Making, more money than your peers, most of your peers at a young age. And what is the dark side of making money for someone who's really young?
Well, I don't want to act like it's such a detrimental thing. Yeah, because I started streaming when I was in high school, didn't make much. In college, was still in debt for like 2 years. And then it started taking off. And then maybe 2-3 years after that, I started making significantly more, like more than what a doctor makes. And then for like 2-3 years, it was much, much more than I could have ever imagined. So initially, it was really just like step by step. Like, I'm just looking to have like a part-time job, basically. I can make a little bit of money here while studying engineering. Cool. Then I was like, wait, if I focus on this for a couple months, I can pay off my student loans. Cool. And then, frankly, for me, my dream in life was always to make 6 figures. Because that's like what a doctor makes typically, right?
Sure.
Let's go. And I really felt like at that point, I was like, okay, I'm good. But it felt like the expectation in life is to optimize that. So when you see the opportunity, right, it's like, go for it. But at some point, it's like, you don't really realize what you're sacrificing, or if you should keep going for it. And I think there were a lot of times where I just put like my health and my mental on the back burner because I was so fixated on like, I need financial stability. And just like with anything else, it can get like, it just becomes a habit or almost like addicting. It's like, okay, need to focus on this. And I lost sight of, again, like, what do I want? What actually makes me happy? And it's like, there was such a scarcity sentiment. Yeah. Even with content creators, it's like, you don't know where your career is going to be in a year or two.
Right. What if the algorithm changes? What if they cancel my account? What if, who knows, right?
Yeah. I'm not going to say that there were like crazy downsides aside from like things that I had to figure out myself, right? Like how to really manage my life and my business structure. But I do feel like sometimes to my peers, maybe they like viewed me differently, knowing that.
Really? How so?
Well, I think depending on the person, it might be something that they judge you off of.
How much money you're making?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. I think for some people it can be inspirational, but for some people it's like, oh, you're over there and I'm here kind of thing. But it's like, oh, I don't come from money. Like, I'm not like that, man. Yeah, which I understand, right? Everybody makes assumptions based off of what they might know about someone. But I also think the lifestyle that I was leading when I wanted to like save up as much as I could, take care of my parents, do this, do that, that lifestyle was also isolating. Yeah.
Really?
Oh yeah, for sure.
How so?
It's just work all the time. And when you're optimizing for work or for financials, everything else is on the back burner.
Yeah.
And it takes so much effort to like, oh wait, I need to keep up with friends. I need to create a friend circle. I need to do this. I need to do that. Even taking care of like your health. It's so easy to set everything else aside when you're focused on career goals.
Right. Now, it sounds like you weren't raised with a ton of money, but you had money, you had a home, you had, opportunities, but you weren't having this rich lifestyle growing up as a kid, right?
Not at all. I feel like, you want to know how I learned like really the value of $1?
Sure.
Which in hindsight, I'm so glad that I did. I've had like numerous jobs before streaming. My very first one was I was a newspaper delivery girl.
Nice.
And
in
I feel
Canada.
like I've always had like a very mathematical optimization kind of mindset. And I would make maybe like $100 every 2 weeks or something. And I would do it like 2-3 times a week. And I had this kind of a route. And I divvied everything up to be like, okay, every time I drop off a newspaper, that's 5 cents. Yeah, so I'm like, 5 cents, 5 cents, 5 cents, 5 cents, yeah. So that was great. And I was so excited, because I didn't get like, what do you call it when your parents give you money?
Like entitled or
No, no, no.
allowance?
An allowance.
Yeah,
I didn't have like an allowance or anything like that. So for me to have money to spend on my own, that was the only way. Like, go get a job. So I was like 13 years old, 5 cents, 5 cents. But it was so exciting to be able to do something on my own, to exchange my time and labor for any amount of money, right? And then you start thinking, okay, how can I optimize this? Let me ride a bike.
Right.
It's a little bit faster. And then, a couple years later, you're able to work elsewhere. You also divvy that up. So
how did you learn how to manage money when it started to come in abundance, really, and more? Because you grew up, 5 cents at a time with newspapers to 6 and 7 figures and beyond. How did you handle it? Like, how did you manage it, handle it, and not be scarce with it still, but think abundantly? Or was there a period of still scarcity? Because you're like, I don't know if this is going to keep coming in, so.
I think I was very lucky that everything came like one step at a time. From that one newspaper job to getting a part-time job to getting a full-time job to streaming to. I feel like everything was incremental throughout my whole life. So I've been able to have a bit of an adjustment period. But when I started making like pretty good money, I'm very lucky. My dad raised me well. He like got me a bank account at like 13. Even if there's not much in it, it's like, this is your bank account. This is how much you have. You should have a savings account. You should have a checking. And, rule of thumb, try to save at least this much percentage of your money. So I was always very considerate of these things, no matter how much I made. It's like, I need to be saving at least, let's say, like half of my income. And your spending money should only be like this portion. And having that mindset already going into it allowed me to not spiral too much one way in terms of scarcity, or spiral too much one way in terms of, let me just spend, right? And I also, I try to be very experimental. Again, I feel like I've learned so much in school, engineering, but experimental in the sense that I would experiment on spending on different things. If I spend a lot more on a video, what does that return look like? If I invest in myself in terms of my health, if I get a trainer, if I invest more in like nutrition, therapy, what are the things where I get the most return and that are actually very helpful? And some things don't make that large of a difference. Like, frankly, as much as I love clothes and fashion, it's like some shirts, if it's good quality, it could be $50. If it's $500, is it going to make that much of a difference? No. But honestly, leveling up with like therapy, that was huge.
Nutrition, health, therapy.
My therapist is like, he's honestly like partially a life coach. Very, very worthwhile. Any sort of health investment I've made, most investments in myself, I feel, paid off a lot. So I started prioritizing that, investments in that in my business. And I feel like looking at it very holistically is what helped me the most.
That's beautiful. Yeah. I love that. Investing in yourself is never a bad investment.
1000%. And honestly, just try stuff. Experiment.
Yeah.
Experiment almost like very considerably and safely. Like, I'm going to try this intentionally and I will jot down how it goes. Should I keep doing it? Yes? No.
Yeah, right. I've got a few final questions for you. This has been fascinating, Imane. I appreciate you.
I hope so. By the way, feel free to ask me anything about like the streaming space. I love talking to people who have no idea what it's about. So if you have any like weird questions,
I'll see what I can come up with.
Yeah.
I'm curious. I wanted to ask you first about how to navigate relationships while being a streamer, while being a big personality, live streaming all day. You've got a massive community watching you constantly, subscribed to you everywhere. How do you build relationships with friends and intimate relationships over the last 10 years so that you can create harmony in relationships and not stress?
I mean, it's for sure a learning process. And frankly, just like anything else that's worthwhile, good friendships and relationships require effort. regular communication, time with each other. And I feel like during perhaps the most like successful parts of my life, I mean, people say it a lot, but it can also be the loneliest. But now when I feel successful, because I spend so much time building out these relationships, I can try to like maximize both at once. But you really, really need to be intentional with those things. Otherwise, it's hard to have those deep, deep relationships.
And how do you manage a intimate relationship with, working nonstop and having this big audience? Or, I don't know, people being jealous or not? Like, how do you manage that?
I think compartmentalizing time is helpful. You're like, if I want to manage these relationships that mean a lot to me, I need to create time and space for them. Especially with any friends that I have that aren't in the public eye. It's about having that conversation of like, are you comfortable being in these things or not? Seeing
like in the live streams, you mean?
yeah,
Or
or anything, in vlogs, in photos. I think sometimes people can be a little bit like worried, obviously, or like unsure because it's such a new space. And it's very easy. Living in LA, you'll always meet people who are a little bit too excited to be in front of the camera, and you can tell maybe that's their priority in the friendship. Yeah, so I think communication has helped me. I mean, it's just the key to making sure that you're on the same page with anyone. And ultimately, creating very specific times when I'm Pokimane, I'm working, I'm doing whatever, and very specific times when I'm off. And if I get along really well with someone when I'm just being me, there's no cameras, no nothing to benefit from. And we develop a beautiful friendship, relationship based off of that. That's how I know I can carry that into my public life, if they're comfortable with it.
Sure. Do you feel pretty safe in LA? Like as a stream, you were mentioning before, like the streaming world's like a different type of, I wouldn't say crazy, but fanatics, right? Like if they're watching you 6-10 hours a day, they're probably really like into you in certain ways and feel like they get to know you and you're their best friend and all these things.
It gets parasocial sometimes.
Parasocial?
Yeah, that's the term we use quite a bit.
What does that mean?
It just means when people, it's a one-sided relationship essentially. If someone is watching you for 8 hours a day, it's easy for them to feel close to you, but you don't know them at all. So they might come up to you like, oh my God, hey, act like you're best friends. And you're like, you're a stranger to me. So it's such an interesting...
Does that happen a lot for you? Luckily, is it different in LA because there's celebrities everywhere and people are more like...
True.
Chill about it.
Luckily, I feel like general understanding and, knowledge or education around these parasocial relationships has gotten a lot better. So even from like the viewer's perspective, they're like, oh, we need to be considerate of these things. We need to approach people respectfully. So nowadays, to me, people are really, really nice.
That's good.
Yeah, I have had some like security concerns. People always want to find out where you live, what you're doing, who you're with, these kinds of things. But frankly, the less that I stream, again, a very like connected, long format type of content, the less of these issues I have. And I've tried very, very hard. I'm 8 years into this. I've set those boundaries publicly. I figured out like what are the things and topics that I should avoid so that people don't get too curious. What are things that you keep to yourself? I can't post photos like outside of my window.
To show anything. It's just a wall.
Yeah. Sometimes I'll move in somewhere and I'll like paint the place differently. I'll get things removed, things changed to make sure it doesn't match anything online.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, it's been quite the learning experience just to avoid any sort of security concerns. Yeah.
Wow. What is the psychology of being really great on Twitch and live streaming? Like, what is the psychology to make someone a great streamer to build a bigger audience?
I hate to say, but we really are all people pleasers. To some degree, we are. We just want like that positive viewer reaction and feedback loop, especially with the chat. I think people who learn quickly, adapt, are great because it's interesting. You can look at your chat as like constant feedback. And if you take that in properly, you optimize how you are as a streamer. How you talk, what you say, what you do, what do people react positively to. So I would say that. And people who just have a big personality and like to talk. I mean, you have to talk the whole time, basically. So, yeah.
Do those things, yeah. Do those things and you have an opportunity, a chance. That's amazing. A couple final questions for you. This is a question I ask everyone towards the end. It's called the 3 truths question. So imagine a hypothetical scenario. I'm going to put this in your context. Twitch and streaming is still massive 100 years away, but it's your last day on Earth. And you have done and created everything you want to create in your life. You've had the life of your dreams. You've accomplished everything.
I sure hope so.
Relationships, family, fun, all these different things you've had. But for whatever reason, all the content you've ever created, no one has access to anymore. It has to go to the next place, wherever you go after we die. But you get one final live stream. And this piece of content will stay in this world forever.
Wow.
And you only get to share 3 lessons that you've learned from your life. If you could imagine this future scenario, what would be those 3 lessons, or what I like to call 3 truths, that you would share if you were streaming live your final time and there was no other content to watch of you?
The first thing I would say is that I feel like compassion is the key to humanity. So cultivate that, treasure it, utilize it as much as you can. Put yourself in other people's shoes. Talk to other people all the time. No one is below or above anyone else. We all lead such cool, unique, individual lives, right? That's such a beautiful thing. And something that I find a little bit difficult about the internet is that sometimes it removes that humanity. Like, oh, you're just a person. You're one sentence. You're one comment. You're one 15-second clip. But everyone you encounter, online or in person, have like a whole backstory to them. And that is what really informs their behaviors, good or bad or whatever, right? I think that's just something that's good to keep in mind. 2, I'd probably say something about gratitude. Another thing that I feel requires a lot of cultivating, because we live in a really, really cool day and age where we have access to so much. But sometimes I feel like as humans we weren't meant to. It's like these neurons start like firing a little bit too much, your brain becomes a little bit fried, and it's easy to lose sight of things. And gratitude above all else is what's going to keep you grounded and maintaining some type of contentment no matter what life you lead. And lastly, I just hope everybody's happy and healthy and has a good life and like take care of yourself. And it would be so hard. You're like, I'm going to disappear. This is the last thing I can say. Yeah, honestly, at the end of my stream, I like to just wish everyone well. I'm like, drink some water, go for a walk, do something good for yourself today. Take care. I'll see you in the next one.
Yeah.
And then never come back. Really. I mean, you can go on and on about like deep lessons and this and that. But take care of yourself and tend to the garden you can touch. The people around you that you see, treat them well. You don't have to worry about every problem in the world. Just help those that you can help. Take care of each other. Take care of yourself. Yeah.
You sound like a true life coach. I like it.
Thank
Got
you.
a lot of wisdom for your youth.
All the mantras I have in my journals.
Exactly. I've got another final question for you, and I want to see where we should follow you and support you, how we can support you in a second. But I want to acknowledge you for a moment, because I think it's really hard when you're in the public eye as a young age and have a lot of audience and have a lot of pressure, a lot of great stuff happening, but also some challenges to face, money, all these different things, that you just feel like you're in a very solid place right now. And I acknowledge you for acknowledging that you might have different breakdowns in your past and saying, what can I do to pause and get some support and go to therapy, get coaching, get advice? I really acknowledge you for that, because I think it's hard for anyone to want to go to therapy. I've been doing it for years. I love it. It brings me a lot of peace. But especially the youth, I think it's hard to acknowledge when, hey, I'm not doing so well, or I've got some breakdown. Let me get some support here. So I really acknowledge you for doing that, talking about it. And I also acknowledge you for reinventing yourself to do what fills you up. Not just what makes me the most money or what other people want me to do, but what also fills you up. So I really am inspired that that's where you're at in this stage of your life, and I acknowledge you for that.
Thank you so much. You are
course.
an amazing listener and conversationalist. I feel like you really just summarized the last year of my life.
That's good. That's good.
Thank you so much.
Before I ask the final question, how can we follow you, support you? Where are you going to be hanging out the most online?
I've been having a lot of fun posting random TikToks. On
Okay.
TikTok, I'm P-O-K-I, Poki. That's it. But feel free to look me up anywhere. P-O-K-I-M-A-N-E. On Instagram, I like to post day to day. Twitch, if you want to check out some live streams. I mean, this is probably my greatest and oddest life skill. When I stream, it doesn't matter how many messages are in chat. I genuinely can read all of them.
Wow.
Yeah. And
you can game and read? You can play and...
Yes, a little bit. But even if it's going super, super fast,
You see it all.
yeah. I mean, you just learn doing something for 10 years.
Yeah.
That's probably the just oddest skill that a live streamer has. It's like you can skim books super quickly, but chat messages instead.
Wow.
So that's my most fun way to be like, wow, I can essentially meet or interact with a human being just like if they tune into my live stream.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and answer anything. And then YouTube more so for bigger moments.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, whatever you're interested in.
We'll
Go
follow you.
explore.
We'll follow you everywhere. Poki.
Appreciate that a lot. Thank you so
Poki
much.
everywhere. Make sure you guys follow. Final question for you. What is your definition of greatness?
My definition of greatness is someone who is secure in what they find fulfilling and what brings them joy, and they pursue that with all their might. I feel like I was lucky in the sense that I'm a very extroverted person. I love to talk to people. I find great interest in other human beings, so it's very easy for me to talk to others. But I felt it was very, very difficult to feel like I belong anywhere.
Really?
Absolutely. And I think that's something that I've struggled